I'm Paige, and I'm here with Amir Killa. Amir, if you could just kind of introduce yourself and let our audience know who you are and how you're a leader in the community.
Hi everybody, my name is Amir Killa. I'm with Lightning Kicks Martial Arts. Lightning Kicks Martial Arts opened in 2001, downtown Kalamazoo. We are very involved in our community. We've taught at Western Michigan University, Kalamazoo Valley Community College, many of the Kalamazoo public schools through Derek Jeter's Turn 2 Foundation. And probably the thing I'm most passionate about and close to my heart is working with at-risk youth, especially ones that don't have positive male role model figures in their lives.
Awesome. So you just talked a little bit about having positive role model, kind of a leader in young people's lives. How have you kind of taken on a leadership role, whether that's in the martial arts field or in the police academy?
Well, it was just a natural progression. It wasn't anything that I intended to do or set out to do. Initially, when we first opened Lightning Kicks, it was because there wasn't much in the area in terms of Olympic Taekwondo, and the 2000 Olympics were coming up, and that was something that I was interested in. So we started from there. Then it turned into a group of other like-minded individuals, people from around the state that wanted to compete at that level. We started attracting them, so people would come in from out of town and stay for a while and train with us. It grew from there to mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu, and we had one of our students in the mixed martial arts program, Eric Zapata, public safety officer with Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety, who was murdered on the job. So from there, I felt like, just a way for me to deal with that was to become a police officer and develop a training program for law enforcement, defensive tactics, and subject control.
So how do you define leadership, or could you give us an example of maybe sometime that you've seen leadership? How do you define it? How do you recognize leadership?
Well, I've been very fortunate to be able to work with some amazing leaders, both in law enforcement and in martial arts. And from learning from each of those, I kind of adapted and created my own form or my own definition of leadership. And for me, it boils down into empowerment. So if I have a group of girls and guys that I'm responsible for, I'm their supervisor, I'm their leader, I'm their command staff, whatever it may be, I see it as my duty to empower them to perform at the best of their abilities. And if there's issues where I can't get them to perform as well as I know that they could, I start remedial training, start talking to them, figuring out what issues are going on or what we could do better to help them achieve and perform at the level that I believe they can. The bad part of leadership is eventually if a person is, I can't work with them to get them to do what they need to do and perform at the level that they need to perform. Due to my care and love for the rest of the team, we might have to part ways with that individual.
So you said something really interesting about empowering your students or the other people in the facility. And something that I love taking part of that's empowering is our women's self-defense class at Lightning Kicks. Why do you think it's important to have a specific space for women to feel that empowerment?
Martial arts or self-defense or combat sports, it's not a natural thing. Even though I believe it's innately part of our built, part of our genetics is part of our primitive mindset is combat and conflict. However, with the way society is now, we've been cultured to avoid that, and it's very uncomfortable for most people, even males, to walk into a martial arts facility where people are kicking, punching, and choking each other, and with no experience, just to be able to walk in and participate in that. It's even more so, more intimidating for most women to do that because it is a male-dominated arena or sport or art. So for one lady to be the only lady in class, be around a bunch of sweaty guys rolling around on the mat, it could be extremely intimidating. However, I know the power of martial arts and I know the benefit of martial arts, and it's something that I would like to share with everybody I come in contact with. So I needed to figure out a way to overcome that hurdle and introduce ladies to it in a more comfortable, more laid-back environment where they could come in, kind of test the waters, and build their confidence, build their comfort level, and then eventually grow into all areas of martial arts that we do.
And so part of that too is you are intentional in who you have as instructors. So could you maybe walk through who you have instructing those classes that are those kind of step into the water, and why you've picked those leaders for the class?
Absolutely. So many survivors of assaults and sexual abuse, sexual assaults, come to these classes, and they are very uncomfortable around males mostly. So the first criteria I used to pick is gender. All of my assistant instructors, or the majority of them, are female. They're trauma informed. They can understand where people are coming from, or where ladies are coming from with that, and they're very gentle, and they're able to bridge that gap and communicate and be supportive of those people. Even myself, when I teach a women's self-defense class, my demeanor, my language, my volume, everything is very different than if it were at a police academy where I'm teaching, or teaching military combatives, or just general mixed martial arts or jiu-jitsu, because I don't want something I say or the way I say it to become a deterrent or a trigger for that individual.
Awesome. And as you talked about, you have experience being a police officer, and you've mentioned in the past too of how that is even a space where oftentimes women are not perceived as leaders, or they're not treated equal within a department. And while you yourself are a minority, you've seen that on the spectrum from your own experiences. But what have you noticed about women leaders, maybe either in the gym or in the police force, either rising as leaders or maybe going over some barriers to become leaders?
Well, law enforcement is another arena where it's mostly male dominated, mostly white male, Caucasian male dominated. So from my personal experience, what I see from minorities and from females is they go through kind of phases. Initially, I want to fit in, so I'm going to act like the guys, behave like the guys, talk like the guys, do whatever I can to be one of the guys, so to speak. The ones that end up being successful, whether minority or female or any other gender identification, is the ones that get past that phase and are able to become comfortable with who they are and not be ashamed that I'm a foreigner or English is my second language. I'm not like everybody else. They become comfortable with that, and once they're comfortable in that area, they tend to attract others that may have faced the same feelings in the past. And those are the ones that I see excel in a leadership position, whether it's in law enforcement or martial arts. They're comfortable in their own skin. They're past that phase of I want to be like everybody else and fit in, and I want to do the best that I can with the skills that I have, with the language skills that I have, with the physical abilities that I have, regardless of how they compare to other people.
Awesome, which ties back to what we were talking earlier about what adaptive leadership is and how you recognize those things and you learn how to use them to your benefit instead of let them define you, which is awesome. So I guess in those situations, I would love to hear maybe a story or something that has happened to you, or even if it's kind of a collection of ideas, something that you've learned from a woman leader. What have you learned from experiencing it, seeing it in the workforce, seeing it in the gym, whether it's a big thing or it's something small, such as a newer female student that's taking an initiative to maybe help out someone else?
Well, in Lightning Kicks, the martial arts school, I almost oversteered in trying to walk on eggshells around women to get them comfortable here. And I thought I had to do that with all women, but I found that there are certain females, mostly the ones that help at the Women's Self-Defense Seminar, that could almost become offensive to them. They don't want to be treated like differently than all the other students. And they almost, I learned, or I was impressed by their ability to prove me wrong by stepping up, mixing it up with the guys, and from there, now I'm noticing that they're taking a leadership role, because women and smaller men are typically, from my experience, easier to teach martial arts because they don't rely on the strength. And once you overcome that strength hurdle, which is somebody's safety zone, I'm not gonna get beat, I'm gonna rely on my strength if I can't make the technique work. If you get past that and you just keep troubleshooting that technique until it works for you, you have a very intimate understanding and relationship with that technique, because you had to dissect it and refine it so much to be able to pull it off with the amount of strength that you have against larger opponents. So I find that women and smaller men, again, have a much deeper understanding of the technique than guys that came in and they spend the first 6 months of their training, I hate to say wasted, but not as effective as it could be, because that strength element or youth or flexibility is a crutch for them to compensate for them not having a complete mastery of that technique.
Awesome, thank you. And I guess one more question that I have is, when we're talking about this mastery, right, we're talking about this, and we want to always promote equity and diversity. I think it's really cool that we're one of the only schools in the area that has a diverse leader, that has someone with your background and your experience and all your training, whether it's professional fighting, whether it's being an honored member of the police force. That's really awesome. But what is also cool is we have diversity in our leaders at Lightning Kicks, right? So we have Black teachers, we have women teachers, we have Egyptian teachers, right? Everybody could become a leader, right? That's our goal. So how do you think you created that culture? Big question.
I think it has a few different elements or variables in that. Number one, by younger people seeing somebody that looks like them in a position of leadership, that will let them know that there's a possibility for me too, right? If this guy can do it, maybe I can do it. That's one. But also the organism, the organization has to be intentional in developing that. So I love all my students, and I'll give any of them the shirt off my back. However, when I see potential in somebody as a leader, I start pouring more into them. And initially that comes in the form of asking for help from them. So a lot of people have insecurity where they don't want to be put into a leadership position. But if I approach them as, hey, Peach, I really need your help with this women's self-defense class. Can you kind of take a leadership? I don't even mention the word leadership role, but can you kind of help me with that? And then slowly I start transitioning and giving more and more responsibility to where they're, next thing you know, they're the leader of that program. So intentionality and opportunity by seeing somebody that might look like you in that role, and intentionality by being nurtured by existing leadership to empower those who have that potential, whether they're minority or female, or whatever the situation might be.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. If there's anything else you want to add in or give advice to maybe someone that doesn't feel empowered to become a leader, here's your chance. Take it away.
The one thing I'd like everybody to know, that you are much more capable and much better than you think you are at most things. There's a few that have a bit of overconfidence, but for the most part, good people that are really trying their best can struggle with imposter syndrome very, very badly. So don't underestimate yourself. Aim high. It's better to have a goal that you fail at that you don't achieve, because that means that you tried and you set a goal that was worthy of your time and your efforts. If you set goals that you know you're gonna hit, that's kind of a waste of time. With that being said, you need a big hard goal, but you need achievable, measurable, attainable steps between there and the ultimate goal.
Awesome. Well, thanks again so much, Amir. We appreciate your time and all of your words of wisdom.